Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Greg Horry here with another episode of my show, Once It Clicked, where it is my job to share in-depth conversational interviews with makers and innovators in the mechanical keyboard community. This week, I have a very special guest, Johnny of LazyCaps. I've really been looking forward to this conversation since Johnny has been a positive influence on my own journey, and he sure delivered. In our chat, we covered so much ground. Johnny relates his guiding principles like spreading wholesome vulgarity. He tells about his experience overcoming challenges and exploring his creativity even before keycaps. And he shares the intricate story behind his lazy universe where all of his creations live. This one was a special one for me. So without further ado, here's the next episode of Once It Clicked, featuring Johnny of LazyCaps. Please enjoy. To begin with, Johnny, I just wanted to thank you for making the time and hopping on the show today.
I'm happy to be here. So happy.
I mean, even before we started recording, we were like chatting a little bit. I feel like we could have gone off on like 5 hours worth of talk. So I'm a bit worried we may not have enough time, but that just might be all the more reason to do a round two in the future.
Hey, I'm all for it.
So one thing I wanted to start today was kind of looking back to how we first got interacted. And I know you mentioned you hit me up a little bit earlier with the Tiki sculpt. One of my first memories is when I actually was able to get one of your caps in hand, and I actually acquired it in a pretty unique way where I won it from one of your giveaways. And I remember like getting I think it was, you must have replied on Reddit after like I posted or like I entered on the thread, and receiving the box, opening up the packaging. I was so surprised. I was so impressed that you have all of this intention, all of this like quality that you give away for free with your raffles. And I was blown away. And I was just curious, what made you start hosting these raffles, and like what kind of feedback have you received? Or what made you start hosting these giveaways rather, and what kind of feedback have you received?
That's a great question. So I think the giveaways go back to a few things. At the heart of my entire journey is nightcaps. Actually, this keycap right here. That is the oatmeal ideation Fugu. Nightcaps would regularly do giveaways with their sales on Reddit. Very early Reddit sale artisanship, if you will. But they would always do, well, I don't know if it would be always, but they would do giveaways regularly. And when I first got into artisans, the Fugu, like many of my generation, I guess, of in the hobby, feels like every year is a new generation. But a lot of us started off, and Fugu was big. Like that was the mass. I hesitate to say mass produced, but it was the most accessible of the artisans, and it was so well done. It has a personality that grabs you and pulls you along with the ride. And I saw the oatmeal ideation, and it started the entire world of artisans for me. I did not win it, unfortunately. I didn't even get to enter for it. I had no idea how these things worked at the time. I was like, this is cool as hell. How do I get this? And like, still looking how to get this. The Geekhack raffle happens and disappears, and all of this, it ends, and I still have no clue how to get it. But Nightcaps was a big influence for me, and those giveaways were always a big, awesome thing. Like, you're really giving back to the community. Like, not only are these really cool, but most of them are even unique. Like, this is a one of one, and I just want to say thank you to the community. And so I didn't get the idea. I straight up stole the idea from them. Like, this is fantastic. my twist, if you will, and I guess at the basis of my entire artisan journey, is to spread as much wholesomeness as I can. I don't. I'm going to struggle not to curse a lot during this podcast, just to let you know. I have a wonderful phrase that I love: wholesome vulgarity, and it's this idea that you can mix the two just fine. Like you don't have to be this wholesome. Doesn't have to be like blue collared sweetness. It can be. It can just be like being kind to each other, spreading kindness where you can, helping the world in general be a better place. And people have all sorts of different ideas about that. Some people, some very close family members would say I am far from wholesome simply because I can't control my potty mouth. But there's a lot of different ways to be wholesome. And this platform gave me the chance to spread that wholesomeness. If you go back to any of my Reddit giveaways, what you'll find is weird requirements by any normal standard. Most people are like, hey, leave a comment, pick a number 1 through 1,000, things like that, at least back in the day. For me, I started off with, okay, you want to enter? It's an honor system, but call your mom, call your dad, tell them you love them, have a 5-minute conversation with them. And once you do that, leave a comment, you're in. I'm not going to check whether or not you called your mom. I don't have that kind of time, nor do I have their numbers. Well, except for a couple of them. But like, just do something good for the day. Spread some love out there. It's not going to cost you more than a few minutes. It's not going to take much of your time. It's going to make someone else's day a million times better. And at the end of the day, you may just happen to win one of my keycaps because of it, completely free. And that's how it all started. And I don't think I really ever had a sale on Reddit without doing one of those giveaways with that kind of requirement. Call a friend, just call someone, tell them thank you for whatever you've done, or whatever they've done for you. I mean, just for being there, just for being your friend. Spread that wholesomeness around, and here's a little possible reward in doing so.
And wholesome vulgarity. That dichotomy. You mentioned several things that I'm eager to explore more. It's like your first exposure to keycaps with nightcaps. You have your idea and approach largely to what you do, not only what I imagine for your craft, but how you approach a lot of your projects, and I imagine in your life too, with this idea of doing what you can to be kind, to make the world a better place with this wholesome vulgarity. And then you also talked about how there's like this growth in the keycaps, but I want to credit you. One thing that I stole from you was the giveaways. So in turn, from nightcaps to LazyCaps to me, was one thing that stuck with me was like, yeah, your idea of having this moment for reflection or action where people go about and do something other outside of themselves. I know one thing that stuck was, for me, when I host giveaways, sometimes I'd have a little prompt, and it just might be, oh, say one thing that you're grateful for, or say one thing that was awesome about your day. But when I hear you talk about having people take the action, that's like the next step. Where I think I was looking in recently, maybe, or one of the more recent posts you had was kind of doing a reflection. You may have said that like looking back recently, things could have been a little like tumultuous, troublesome, and if you can just like write out what you hope like a big goal would be going forward. And I mean, I can see how that like translates, and just like even if it affects like the individual, how that positivity can definitely pay it forward. But going kind of riffing off your idea of like the spreading this wholesomeness, you've hosted several raffle or charity raffle sales, and I'd be curious for you to tell me more about the inspiration behind these events and what those were like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess with the charity raffles, it's almost like the giveaways. I am in a position put there by others, and I'm thankful and lucky to be here, but I'm in a position to reach back down the ladder. I think the ladder is a lot larger than a lot of people think. You know, the ladder's not just other artisans or other makers. It's everyone, man. We're all struggling. Everyone in the world is struggling. Well, not everyone. We've got our billionaires, right? But for the most part, many of us are struggling, and sometimes that struggle's hidden. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes it's day-to-day life. You know, there's a lot of struggle, and being able to lift each other up to the best of our abilities is one of the most important things we can do for each other. For the charities, just different charities that meant something to me, mean something to me, that I was able to give back to. My very first one was was to the LGBTQ community, and we raised that was my Love is Love sale, and we raised $1,500, and I'm super lucky enough to have a job that doubles up on donations. So overall, we were able to do $3,000 for a local charity, if you will, youth LGBTQ center. That basically they sent me a letter that actually broke down what I ended up buying, but it was the equivalent of like 6 kids' entire year's worth of service through this company, and they handle mostly at-risk cases, which these days it's getting better, but when you're talking LGBTQ, the youth is where the biggest risk is. Even if it's not, even if the risk is sometimes just within ourselves, you know, like even if it's just a kid struggling to come out to his parents and say, you know what, I feel this way, and they may accept it and have no problem. But on the other hand, we know there's a lot of kids that don't have that acceptance, you know, and people are what people are. Some of us are fantastic. Some of us are just terrible. And the more we can spread that fantasticness, the better. In the case of this charity, it's something that helps those kids who are struggling and helps people in need, really. Yeah, I'd say that was probably the one that meant the most to me, because I have just an exceptional amount of both family and friends that are part of the LGBTQ community, and being able to use my slight position here to be able to increase the overall awareness and help some of those struggling in those instances was a no-brainer for me. The fact that the company I work for doubles it was just icing on the cake. And when I found out that, it kind of inspired, like, okay, let's do these more regularly. Let's try and do more charities. And charities are it's a little weird. Through my time doing charities, I've noticed that people will pay a lot more for charity keycaps than other things, and that's not bad at all. But at the same time, because so many people are struggling, it's a hard thing to approach. I don't want to make these keycaps and then have someone pay $1,000 for a keycap so that it'll go to a charity, when that person, I mean, some of us can afford to throw $1,000 at a keycap, no problem. Some of us see, oh, this is for a charity, and think, okay, well, I can skip a couple of bills and try and push this number a little higher, and that started weighing on me. So now I do my charity donations more in private. I still use my company to double up, but now I'll just take the profits of a sale and put it towards that charity, whatever it may be. And I think that puts more of the weight of the donation more on myself and more equally spread amongst other people. I may still be getting the same amount of money for those keycaps, but it's across 15 keycaps instead of one. It's across 15 people instead of one. it's still something I'm playing around with because I lose a little bit of the I guess awareness in
Mm,
spreading like, okay, well, here's what we're doing. Yeah, it's something I need to work on more to get like a happy medium, but it's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about helping others where you can.
yeah. And that's beautiful. It's like you recognize that we have this collective experience. I mean, there's definitely a spectrum, but where people are struggling and you recognize that you have this platform to be able to have an impact and make this change. And you say, have you, for the LGBTQ, like you had this ability to help 6 kids for a year. That's real impact. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, because having the platform is one thing, going forward then to take the action is another. And I just wanted to recognize you. And at the same time, one thing you brought up was kind of the idea of the sensitivity about the financial aspect, maybe the burden of keycaps, which is kind of like the maybe the darker side, less spoken about. And that's definitely something I want to come back to later, so we can just bookmark that. But I'm really curious to ask about how you cultivated this sense, this ability about like, or this idea of paying it forward, like helping other people. I immediately think of my chat with Vincent from LazyCaps, where he's like, I think his intro to the hobby was through this charity events, and I know he regularly hosts these, and I think one's coming up too. And I was just curious if that's something that you started with keycaps, that you saw that you had this position to be able to have this effect, or if the roots were earlier to develop this idea, these ideals about helping others.
Yeah, not to derail, but I will say Vincent is just an amazing person. I really like Wrath a lot. Uh, we we don't talk nearly enough, but he's good peeps for sure. Um, I guess for me, charity in general has a big impact throughout my life. My my childhood was very all over the place. Sometimes we were doing great, and sometimes it was Christmas from the church. Um, it was on both sides. I've sat in the bread line at the food store, at the food banks, and I've been on the other side. My family growing up did give us a bit of that. Let's return the favor. Let's help out at the food bank or whatnot. Um, I will say we probably were on more of the receiving end than the giving end more often than not. And I got to see what an impact it was to us. And sometimes as a kid, you don't really appreciate that. You get Christmas from the church and you're like, oh, pajamas, boo. I'm 6 and don't really appreciate this. But then in retrospect, you grow up and you're like, wow, I didn't have pajamas. I would not have had anything warm and comfortable to sleep in without somebody else giving it forward. And it didn't it didn't really reflect on my 6, 7 year old mind, but as a grown ass man, it's a very different perspective, and I've got the opportunity now to be on the other side of that. Life has been nothing but good to me, nothing but good to me, and life is what you make of it. We all go through our struggles as we were discussing, but in the end, I'm happy. I have a great job. I have finally found a hobby where I can express my creativity in a way that makes me happy and a way that provides me with something. I mean, I can look down at my own keyboard, my own macro pad, and it is just full of my own creations. And honestly, that was one of the biggest things for starting this was I want something on my keyboard that I made by myself. That's awesome. Um, but but this hobby also is I mean, it's a niche in a niche, and it provides financial freedom for a lot of people in here, and it provides enough of a financial freedom for some of us that we can really afford to pay it back, and pay it forward, you know?
Mm. Man, thanks for sharing that, Johnny. I mean, that's real. Like, you had this experience, and at the time, maybe as a kid, you weren't able to see it for what it was, but then again, going forward and paying it back, man, respect. You mentioned expressing creativity and how keycaps was, you felt maybe this first opportunity to really explore that. Were there any other hobbies or pursuits that you had where you were looking for this expression before keycaps?
So many, so many. So uh, my biological father and my mother estranged at a very young age from me, but my father and my grandfather were both very artistic. Drew a lot, painted a lot. I've got some of my grandpa's paintings still in our house, and I just was overly exposed to this artistic side at a very young age. Growing up, I tried my best. I I drew a lot, not very well, but I drew a lot. Um, there's one like drawing that always sticks out in my mind. I did this white tiger in a barn, weirdest drawing ever, but like I remember how much, not so much even how much work went into the drawing, just how much passion went into it. I was sitting there, I was probably, I'd say 9 to 10 years old, and just pouring day after day into this little note card size sketch of this white tiger in a barn. No idea where it came from, and it was it was probably the most passionate I was about a drawing for the longest time, and I kind of fell out of drawing for a while, and then tried to pick it up again in my 20s and did not do very well at all. Um, not at all. I was never satisfied with what I could create. I
Mm.
mean, that's always the case for a lot of artists. We are our own worst judge. But yeah, I could never make myself happy with it. And then I don't know, my late 20s, I came across a spray paint art video where there was this like 60, 70-year-old man with a poster board and making, I don't know if you've seen the Vegas style galactic art where it's like planets and stuff, all done with spray paint. And I saw this and I was like, man, this guy made it look, this is a 4-minute video and it's not fast forwarded. I can make my own art super cheap. I can put a really cool galaxy on my wall and pay maybe $5 in material for it. So I'm sold on this. And I did it for about 2 years, and I really enjoyed it. It was hard on my health because I was too stupid to take any real precautions. I was spray painting it up inside of a closed garage, just painting after painting. I'd be in there 3 hours, just the fumes everywhere, and I'm not wearing a mask or anything. I'm blowing my nose at the end of the night, and it looks like a rainbow. It's just the worst possible scenario I could have put myself in. And I ended up moving, and when I moved, the I no longer had a good place to do this art. Like, it's, if you don't have an inside type situation to do it, or like a general warm climate, you're limited to only when the weather is just the right temperature range, kind of like casting, to actually do your work. So it was really important to get somewhere where I could do this work, and it just didn't happen. I I would try again in like 4 or 5 years, and again, it was just like the drawing. I had lost so much of the skill. I had lost so much time and practice that I instantly was dissatisfied with everything I made, because I knew I was making far better just years ago. and
Mm-hmm.
no longer could achieve that. It all led, so lots of creative pursuits. I did some woodworking, which I still occasionally do, but it's nothing in depth, but fun stuff. Ultimately, though, what brought me to this was my love for Pops, Funko Pops. I, like many other cringe people, got a stupid collection of Funko Pops, and my wife was really into it. We were both really into it. I say we still have probably 100, 150 in the house easy.
Yo. Yes.
But I mean, at one point we had close to 600.
Yo.
It's overboard. But the and I think this picture is actually on my Instagram somewhere. The custom ones came out where you could like get a blank one and make it yourself. And for Christmas, I think 4 years ago now, I got some epoxy sculpt clay and added onto it and made a legit copy of myself and my wife, down to like she's got a scar through her eyebrow, and my facial hair grows like in this weird direction through my face. And so all of this is reflected, the tiniest details reflected in this. And I gave it to her for Christmas, and like the biggest dork ever, I recorded the whole thing, and I watch it at least once or twice a year just because her joy is like so incredible. And watching her open that warmed my heart so much. I can't even put it into words, but it was the inspiration for everything. I thought to myself, man, if I could do this for other people, if I could give them something that would make them go, holy crap, tears in my eyes, this is beautiful, this is amazing, then that's everything I could ever ask for. That is the accumulation of everything for me when it comes to art, is being able to put that smile on someone's face, knowing that when you open one of my caps, it's going to bring a smile to your face is huge. I'm jumping ahead here, but yeah, so that's what started it, was that, and I was like, this is amazing. I want to make toys, and I still do. I still want to make toys. I actually probably don't have one right here, but I made my son a little toy growing up, just like a little handheld toy that he could play with. We call him Gary. He's like almost like a little Yeti, but he's like perfectly round and good for a toddler's grip. And he still gets excited for Gary sometimes. But yeah, it started this idea of I want to make these toys, right? And then simultaneous to this, I am learning about, I had already been into mechanical keyboards for about a year. At this point, but I'm learning more and more about the artisan process. Back then, there's like maybe 4 total videos / documents on how to make this stuff. There's next to nothing. There is Art Key put out, and they didn't ever label it as their own stuff, but if you look hard enough on YouTube, you'll find their very first version of their bowl being rainbow colored and then white backfill. And they're just using like a toothpick and picking in colors for the beard and everything. And it was beautiful, but it's like I'd say probably a 3 to 4x speed video with no audio. It's just music playing in the background. I watched it enough that the music ended up on a playlist because I was addicted to it. But yeah, it was great. It was a good idea of, hey, this is cool stuff that's happening here. There was Binge's Hunger Key that I think every maker has come across at some point or other. And then there were these videos by a guy named Fiscal Rascal. He goes by LazyCaps or just Fiscal. and some other weird geekhack name that I can never remember. But he's just a fantastic guy, and he is sitting there just explaining step by step everything he's doing. And it's just him figuring things out as best as he could back then. But he had already made some really cool sculpts. He had already released, he had some good success, and he was obviously doing things that he knew how to do. And so it was like, man, this is perfect. Like he had like 3 videos, and I just watched them over and over and over trying to learn how to do this stuff. And I ended up picking up I went the reverse way of most people. I went with a Monster Clay kit to start, and I ended up moving to Sculpey. Most people are the other way around, but picked up a Monster Clay kit and then started playing with that. It had the instructions on how to build like a little figure, and did that. And then I got the synth, and I started sculpting on that, and I just fell in love with the whole idea. And I lucked out like no other. Right around that time, I won a newish award from work, and behind my back, they found my Amazon wish list, which included a pressure pot, a compressor, and basically all the things you need to start. And they bought me like the compressor and 2 or 3 other things right off my wish list. And at that point, it was like, this all just shows up. They're like, oh, by the way, you won this award, and here you go. It arrives today. And I open it up, giant 5-gallon, or I think it may have been 5-gallon compressor. I don't remember. A giant compressor shows up and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, like this is the sign. You need to start doing this. So I think maybe a week later, there's a video on Instagram of me pouring silicone onto my first sculpt, Blind Bob, and I was in for it, man. I pulled out the next day. I gave it like 3 times the cure length that it needed. I was like, I'm not messing this up. Please don't mess this up. And next day I pull out my mold, and I was just blown away. I was like, wow, I didn't do really anything other than pour silicone on something, but I've got it. I've got a silicone something, right? And I was just sold from that point on. I made my very first cap that day, a solid translucent purple Blind Bob. I pulled it out. I made it of Smooth On 327, or Smooth Cast 327, and I pulled it out, and 24 hours later, it's still squishy. And I'm like, oh my God, I messed this up. I don't know what I'm doing. So I make another one, and it pulls out, and I give the first one to one of my friends. I was like, here, just it's gooey, it's gummy. I don't know what I did wrong, but here, you can have my creation. And I make a second one, and the next day, it's squishy. I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I make another one, and it's squishy. And so I'm complaining to my friend, all my caps are squishy. And he's like, oh, well, this one's hard now. And that's when I learned that full cure is not the same as cure.
Yes.
So over like the next few days, all of them become rock hard. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to need that cap back. I'll replace it with whatever you want, but I need my first cap back. So I've got it somewhere around here in a little box with all my other first castings. But I put that cap on my keyboard, and it stayed there for probably a year and a half. It meant so much to be able to have my own piece of art that I could produce. I won't say mass produce, but I mean, might as well mass produce here with air quotes, as much as I wanted. If I wanted every key on my keyboard to be that stupid little key, I could. And it made me so happy to be able to do that. It was the first time that I was able to make something and produce it at a quantity where, hey, I made myself one. I made one for my wife. I made one for our roommate. I made one for my friend. I made one for my family members who are like, what the hell is a keycap? You know, I'm making them for everyone. And it brought me so much joy to be able to look down at something I made. And at the same time, I'm just posting on Instagram kind of like as a I think at the time it was more of just a track my own journey for myself kind of thing. And people are liking it. People are finding me and liking the pictures and liking my mold process and stuff. And I'm blown away by this. I remember sitting there with my wife and I'm like, oh my God, I got 2 new followers today. I have no idea how. 2 followers. It's insane. I'm pushing 40 followers. And then you know, it's so much excitement over the silliest little thing. But yeah, people liked it. And so I kept doing it. And I got these little pings either through Instagram or Discord of people being like, this is awesome. Please keep doing this. And honestly, without them, it never would have taken off.
Man, you mentioned so many things, like starting out pursuing this creativity, like with even with your first drawing, where it's this idea of expressing this passion over the work and really pursuing that. And you also mentioned the Funko Pops, which I'm looking at now on your Instagram. And like I usually do, I'll definitely link to these things that we talk about in the show notes. And I hear when you say how you shared this gift, this creation with your wife, that you instilled this joy in her. Man, that's just pure love. And I can see how that translates into like all you do. Like when I first opened that giveaway box, I was like, what the heck? This is incredible. Like your custom box on the outside, and then all of the intention that you put into everything inside it. Not to mention your keycap alone is like that. It clearly translates. And I mean, I can see how your desire and your like the energy you put into that is this manifestation in your work. So just credits to you before I move on. But like, yeah, so you mentioned, I'm just looking back at kind of the notes that I've been writing down. And even before we get into casting, I was curious. You mentioned that you started drawing as a child, like 9, 10 as a kid, and then revisited it again when you're in your 20s. And I was wondering what made you come back to that, or what inspired you to search for the creative outlet.
I think we all have a creative side of ourselves. I think a lot of us struggle to find how to properly execute it. And the thing is, there's so many different ways to be creative that you might never try enough things. And let me rephrase that. If you don't try enough things, you may never find it. If you don't go on a look, if you don't go on a look, that makes a lot of sense. If you don't go looking for it, if you don't go on a journey for it, you could spend your whole life thinking you don't have any creativity, and it's just not true. I don't care who you are. If you're listening to this, you have creativity. You just got to find it. Some of you already know where it is. Hell, I thought I've found it tons of times before, and you know, I did. I found ways to exhibit it. I can send some of my art over at some point here, my spray paint art. I made pictures that made me very happy. I made pictures that made me super sad that I ended up selling them. That now I would pay easily 10 times what I sold it for just to have it back. I got keycaps like that too. But I had some great fun with spray paint art. That was probably the one thing I was most successful at before this, was my spray paint art. I brought it into work to show off to people, and people wanted to buy it like right then and there. And I was like, I didn't really think about that, but sure, $5. And it got to a point where I'd come into work with 10 paintings every couple of days, and I'd sell them all before the end of my shift. I started to worry about losing my job because they'd find out that I was selling shit to other coworkers. And thankfully, I had a really cool boss at the time, and he was like, no one knows but us. It's like, okay, that's fair. And you know, even when I left, some of the like higher ups were still talking about like, hey, you still make those things? No, not anymore. But no, and when I say left, I've been with the same company for almost 16 years now. We simply moved away from one location and into another, and over the years, lots of things have happened, and my previous boss, my current boss, my whole situation, and COVID also, one of the things that did help was cementing this permanently. But I've been working remote for a long time, almost a decade now, and that has both been a blessing and a curse. It's definitely a different thing not getting to go in and see people, but when I did go in and see people, they were interested in my art, and that gave me a whole different perspective of like, hey, people can enjoy this. That's cool. Yeah, and you know what? I am sorry, I forgot the base of the question here. I'm just kind of
It wasn't
talking.
much of a question. No, I was just curious about what drew you to find that expression, that creativity again, like in the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said,
I
tree
think
of
you hit it.
thoughts
Yeah. No, you hit it.
spawning
I
out.
heard you.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think everyone has it, and it's just a
Yeah.
matter of finding where inside yourself you most feel it resonating. For
Yeah.
me, I thought it was spray paint art for a long time, and just kind of I never got this full satisfaction of it. It was more like I found something that I can create, and I can create well. I didn't necessarily have all of the feelings associated with it that like I get nowadays. Like now I can make a cap that just it resonates with me so much that I absolutely refuse to sell it. There's no way in hell this is going anywhere but my personal collection because I love this. And um I never got that at the level I get it now with spray paint. I never got it with anything really. And I always felt the creative need. I want to play piano. I don't know how. I have no idea how, but I feel like it's one of the few musical instruments where my tone deafness won't necessarily hurt me. Because, if I push this key, it's going to always sound like this key. But it's that pursuit of what creativity do you have in you and where will you succeed with it? And you don't necessarily have to be a super success at what you're doing to enjoy it. But I think everyone should actively work to find the passion that they enjoy. Even if you only create it for yourself, even if you never make a business out of it, hell, more often than not, don't make a business out of it. Just find something to let your passion out. Embrace it, and you'll find yourself growing quite a bit.
If you don't look for it, you'll never find it, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned feeling and talking about how when you first created Blind Bob, you were instilled with this sense of joyous like accomplishment. And I mean, I'm looking right next to me at my keyboard, and I have one of my first multi shots for one of my first caps, and very much it was like, oh, I made this, and then I can put it on my keyboard and look at it, and it just instills me with that same sense of accomplishment, like satisfaction and joy. And I definitely hear you, and that resonates with me as like a big reason for kind of starting this journey. One thing that I'm curious to ask about now is you mentioned you started sharing your experimentation, your creativity with Blind Bob, and then there was this period in between. I think it was probably like half a year before you even started sharing it through like sharing your craft through raffles. And between this time, I think maybe you sculpted 3 different designs that you shared, maybe more, and were experimenting with so many different resin casting techniques. And I was curious to ask what that process looked like in that 6 months when you're developing and experimenting and exploring this new craft.
I'm not sure that I ever thought of LazyCaps being a full-on. Well, I guess I never thought LazyCaps would be what it is today. That's for sure. I didn't necessarily think there would be no success with it, but it wasn't a predetermined thing. It was more about finding all of these different ways to make cool things. And like I said, back then there was so little information as a whole for the artisan community that everyone was experimenting. Hell, we're still experimenting, right? But like everything was an experiment. There were so many avenues that just no one had gone down. And starting off, you haven't gone down any of them. You know, you're just starting off. There's so many roads to travel, so many different things to see. There was this desire to make cool things that I would want, but also would potentially bring happiness to other people. I won't say I went in completely thinking there's no chance of ever selling anything or anything like that, and there's obviously a strong demand in this niche. There are, even at the height of all the makers coming in, there's still so many more people wanting keycaps than those making keycaps. And so I always knew there was like the possibility that this could become a business type thing. But in the beginning, it was just, what can I do that makes me excited? What different techniques can I find that make me happy? Can I find or do anything that hasn't been done before? And I think if you look back, well, Instagram was a good place for me to share a lot of things, but there's so much stuff that didn't get shared to Instagram. I have it's a regular joke in my Discord, but I have a vase about this big filled with bee stock. And then I have one of those glass bricks that you would get from like a home decor place, like Hobby Lobby or something, right? And that's just jam packed full of keycaps. And I used them. We're in the middle of moving, obviously, but I used to use them as like decoration near my stuff, as well as just an easy place to throw more bee stock. And there's so many. I have a very, very, very early picture on my Instagram. Here, let me shoot this over to you. There we go. Very, very early picture of me throwing out some of my different bee stocks. And some of these were, so you'll see Wicked Wanda, which was my second cast there. And I used a ball bearing for her little scene. I'm drawing a blank. That's totally not the word for it. But her little mystic ball, her crystal ball. Yeah.
Crystal ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I used a really shiny ball bearing for that, and it created my very first shiny effect, if you will, for my keycaps. I hadn't done any shining to them before, hadn't really done anything to like increase their texture beyond the clay that I made them in. Wicked Wanda was also my first experience with Sculpey, and where I learned, hey, baking in save points is awesome. But it was a new technique for me. And then I started making molds of the balls themselves and pre-filling those balls and then shoving them into the mold and casting around them. So you get these super clean distinctions between the balls. And my very first sale was all... Throughout this, you'll probably learn I'm a bit of a Joker fanatic, but my very first sale was Troubled Minds themed. And I had a Harley Quinn Wicked Wanda, and the entire ball is completely clear, but then it's got some glitter, diamond glitter in it. And so you can actually look through that ball from all different angles, and it's perfect ball, perfect orb in her hand that is completely sealed away from the rest of the resin. And it's a technique that's used quite heavily now, but at the time I hadn't really seen it used too much, and more so it was something for me to explore and do on my own. That came from my mind, I guess. That's just a next step of exploration, and I think that's throughout all of these, you just see multiple steps of exploration. With Blind Bob, it was learning that maybe putting a detail that wraps around the entire cap isn't the smartest idea, because that then takes like 3, 4, 5 shots to complete, just to get it wrapped all the way around perfectly. And then with Wicked Wanda, it was more, okay, how do I start isolating some of these things? So you'll start seeing like more bulbous features. She has a mole, and that mole really sticks out. Her eyes really stick out there. It's like a Jim Henson Muppet almost. The ball is cast completely separately. I still have a drawer full of hundreds of these balls where I would just dump resin and keep them for future casts. And yeah, learned so much throughout this early creation process. And then came Battle Bear. And
Yes.
Battle Bear was it's still probably my most exciting sculpt for myself. I have actually, fun fact, I have a video on my phone somewhere from when I first finished Battle Bear. We were just getting ready to go on a cruise, my wife, myself, and our roommate and one of our friends, all going on a cruise, and I filmed 2 minutes of me rotating this sculpt, finished sculpt but never cast, in my hands, all the different angles, so that during this 5-day cruise, I could sit there and just look at every inch of it and think of anything I want to change. And at the very end of the video, you hear me whisper, I didn't even mean to, but you hear me whisper, Battle Bear. And so for
Yes.
5 days, everyone's enjoying a cruise, and I'm watching this video on repeat, just every 2 minutes, Battle Bear, Battle Bear. And I'm catching so much shit for this video, rightfully so. This was borderline narcissistic, but I'm falling in love with this creation, and every aspect of it was pulled off to its. There's so many details, and they're all meant to be multi-shot. It's meant to be like heavy on the details, heavy on the dye, heavy on the whole process, and that has yielded both amazing results and some very amazing limitations that I never would have thought of in the beginning. But yeah, it came to Battle Bear, and then my very first introduction of Battle Bear on Instagram. I thought I was some hot shit for this guy right here, but it was I had played around with some Photoshop. I put the Battle Bear logo into the wood, color desaturated the background and everything, but you can still see like massive issues in this. I tried to add like a blood stain to the Band-Aid, and it just came out as like this pink portion of the Band-Aid. There's black flecks all throughout it from previous casts and everything. But I was so happy with this cast, so happy with the sculpt, and it gave me nothing but the best vibes. And it was when I made this guy that I finally decided, you know what, I've grown enough that I really should give this a shot. I should try and have a sale. Simultaneously, I was going through massive amounts of like, I'll never be good enough feelings. And it took the guys at Z-Butt, again, very, very young on Z-Butt, but it took my little Z-Butt family to be like, nah, you're insane. Just go for it. Do it. Just do it. Even if you only get one entry, it's still going to get you past that hurdle of I'm never going to be good enough. And they pushed me, and so I went for it. I made the Troubled Minds sale. I think I called it what was it, Acme chemical spill or something like that. Um, I've got the very first cap I made from that floating around here somewhere in like a little shadow box with its ID card and everything. But yeah, I went to town on that, and I've learned so much since then. But I made almost every single cap in that sale unique in some form or fashion, either changing the shots on the internals, which was also something very rarely done at that time. Most internals didn't have multi shots, or if it did, it was just like on the side of the butt or something. Whereas mine, I would just went as nuts as I could right from the get go. I had caps that had 5 separate colors in just the butt of the internals of the keycap on that first sale, and I just went hog as much as I could. I spent a week and a half at night making these keycaps, and I was just so happy with them beyond the constant nagging of my head of like, this part's not good enough, this part's not good enough. I still ended up pulling like half the keycaps, and they're still in that glass brick to this day. But at the end of the day, I was happy enough with them to go ahead and try this sale. When I did, it was an experience. I got massive amount of support on Reddit, which was awesome. I got lots of negative comments on Discord about coming out at $50, which was a fairly standard price at the time. Nightcaps had just started charging, I think, 65 or 70, and I figured 50 is what everyone else seems to be right around, and I've got some of these caps had 20 shots in them, so I was like, a lot of work went into this. I pulled so many caps for the slightest failure. I'm gonna try it, and of all people, Hello Caps Liam reached out to me and was like, look, I'm seeing what people are saying, and I just want you to know they're full of shit. They're not right, they're not accurate. I see how much love you're putting into this, I see how much time you're putting into this, and these are fantastic. You do you. Get it out there. And to this day, I still give great thanks to Liam for that bit of encouragement. It came at it, not to deneg anyone else. I got so much encouragement from all sorts of places, but it came at like the optimal moment, the moment where it really almost became okay, I should shut this down right now before even finishing the raffle, because so many people are dogging on me. And yeah, it came at the perfect time. It really did. So yeah, I again have talked way past the question. I'm not even sure I'm answering it, but yeah, it was a really great moment, and one of those moments of lifting each other up and helping each other out, even if it's just those kind words, just a few moments of your time saying, hey, you're doing good. Don't listen to the haters. Listen to me. Listen to the people who love your work, because this is good stuff. And yeah, so after those 6 months of working and perfecting everything, felt good enough to go with it. And still, 6 months, I still wasn't 100% confident in myself. And I think the reason I stress that is for all the other makers out there, for those trying to find their passion, for those trying to find what they want to do, you might never feel super confident in yourself, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue it. You should still get out there. You should still try to find what makes you happy. And at the end of the day, if you're making no one but yourself happy, that's all that matters. But at the end of the day, you'll also more than likely find that there's a lot more people happy about your work than you give credit to, than you think will be. Some people that may never come across you in real life, may never talk to you, but still will hear your music or open your keycap or view your picture, your painting, whatever, and say, holy crap, this resonates with me so hard. This means so much to me. You know, I doubt when Nightcaps was putting together the Oatmeal Ideation Fugu, they thought one lick about the potential that I would find that cap, you know? But that one cap is the entire reason LazyCaps exists at all. That one cap. If not for that one cap, I could have easily just kept on going. I didn't even get the cap for the longest time. My really good friend, Destroyer Caps Tex, hunted it down for me after hearing this story about how this made my entire career as LazyCaps. He hunted down one for me and presented it to me as a gift years ago, and I ended up it's on my website as well. See if I can fling it across the room. See if I can make this show up. But I have this guy, which is the battle bear I did for Nightcaps as a thank you for getting me started in this. It's a color match and pretty much a replica of the Oatmeal Ideation, and it's called Oatmeal's Inspiration. Because Nightcaps really was an inspiration. You know, they still are an inspiration. They do amazing things, and not to deneg on anyone, but I've talked to a lot of the older crew, you know, the first generation, the second generation of makers, and Nightcaps is just the nicest, sweetest people in every way. They've never been anything less than absolutely stunning and amazing when I interact with him. I remember when I got my very first, I got an Eggplant Wizard Fugu from their Prismatic sale. I bought it from a fantastic person on Reddit who is now one. We reconnected after they started entering my raffles, having no idea that I was the person who bought this. So I was like, you literally are part of the reason why you're able to buy from me, is because you sold me this cap right here in the middle of my little 9-pack of my little mini Wong box, but right there in the middle, Eggplant Fugu. Yes. And they were a big part of why I am here. You know, they sold me that keycap thinking nothing of it, but it started this whole, okay, these are awesome, I need the next one. I think 2 days after I got this, I bought a red one for my wife, and then I bought a green one, like the pear green one, and then I bought one for my friend, and it got to the point where I'm just buying artisan keycaps for other people who may not even have mechanical keyboards. Just like, I like this, you're gonna like it.
Yes.
I hope. Yes. And it was huge inspiration to just get going with it.
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned several incredible humans. You said Liam. Shout outs to Liam for reaching out to you when you're kind of at this crossroads where you're faced with this pushback from your sale. And I mean, when I first saw those caps, I'm surprised to hear that you got that kind of feedback, because when you say you're doing a 20-shot cap, that's hours of time. That's some real work relative to other caps that might be selling for more, that may only be a few shots. And I guess I have a different, or we all have our different perspectives, and that's we approach it differently. But I don't know. Yeah, seeing your battle bear, or before even getting to that, I mean, like, shout outs to Tex too, and Nightcaps. Like, those are two people whose names commonly come up, especially Nightcaps with the influence on the game. And I just wanted to plug that. But back to the battle bear, I mean, looking at like Blind Bob and Wicked Wanda, and then battle bear, like you mentioned, there's this experimentation, this progression of both exploring like the sculpts and the resin casting. And then I noticed that where it's like Blind Bob, you have your multi shots. I hear you on the details wrapping around. That's something definitely to avoid or be aware of. And then your Wicked Wanda. I didn't realize you casted the crystal ball separately. That's nuts, because then you can get a actual, as you said, like complete cast of the see-through orb, and that's something that was new. And then you translate that to your battle bear with like the smooth aesthetic, the high details, and the ability to multi-shot. And now looking to what you've been able to do today is an incredible progression. And another thing you mentioned was this idea of your focus on pursuing your craft, you're creating this or pursuing this sense of creativity, whatever that may be for people. And it's like blind to the results. Yes, you might feel, yes, like I might feel uncomfortable. I might not feel like it's enough. And that immediately reminds me of one thing I've heard by an author named Seth Godin. And this is kind of in line with imposter syndrome, where his idea is focus on the practice. It's like process over results. It's when he gets this sense, oh, I feel like I'm doing something outside of my comfort zone. I feel like I'm not at the level that I could be. For him, he says he's trained his mind to recognize, oh, that's when I'm doing good work, in the sense that that's when he's really focusing on this pursuit. That's when he's really intentional about his practice. It's not that he's going to sell 1 million copies of his book. It's not he's going to be New York's best time seller. It's not that he's going to hit Reddit #1 for keycaps. It's investing in this intention to developing this craft, this process, and this pursuit. And I mean, hearing about your progression of the time that you took finding this hobby, the investment that you had in both the materials, and then exploring these ways of casting and sculpting, to finally getting to the point where you can be like, okay, I think I'm at a point. I know that there are still things that I want to improve, but then I can go forward with this. Seems like a great example of that intentionality, as you said. And I mean, I definitely agree. To anyone who's curious or even has that sense of, oh, maybe I want to find something to create, is, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. So I just wanted to recognize what you said with that. I wanted to jump, because you mentioned you mentioned this motivation for exploring different resin casting techniques and sculpting aesthetics. I was curious how you think about your future design process. I mean, I saw one of your recent caps or your recent sculpts. It is insane. Your Arthur Whizbang, and you have so many different elements that you've included in this sculpt. And maybe speaking to this sculpt in particular or any other example, I was just curious, like, what kind of considerations go into your design ideas? I mean, you mentioned there's like these different aspects of resin casting, but yeah, I was just curious to hear more.
Yeah, absolutely. Arthur's a great example, actually. Arthur is over a year worth of work. I started Arthur back in July of 2020, and he went through an entire. I had the idea. So the idea for a little bit of a semi-spoiler, I guess. A lot of people want to know how Arthur's eyes are done. Arthur is a doll and uses doll eyes. He is nothing too complex. Well, I say nothing too complex. It literally took me a year worth of work to get the eyes the way I wanted and to be able to make them in-house. There's so many places I want to go with it, but like it came down to so many different things. I have over 10,000 little glass eyes from different sources, trying to find the perfect shape, the perfect height, everything. But at its base, Arthur started off, and he's actually one of the few ones where I showed off early work of him after he was not quite complete, but pretty far along in the process. One of, I think, maybe this. Here, let me shoot you a link. I think this is. I don't know if I can actually shoot the proper image, but it's going to be the second image on this link of Instagram. Arthur started off with a drastically different aesthetic. And the black and the orange caps here kind of show the progression. So the black one was before the bow tie, and it was first, you can't really see it, but there's like cracking on his skull that you can see in the third picture. And he was more of a porcelain type doll, went for a high sheen and everything. The eyes didn't work out very well in casting this way. Trying to stick eyes in there. The follow me eyes are so huge for me. I was putting together a series of books. Yeah, for reasons we'll just skip the dragon style notebooks from like your Renaissance fair type thing, where it's like an eyeball right in the middle and then stuff spreads off and it's like leather folded over, things like that. Had an entire series of keycaps planned like this, all for chalk profile too. And I was really crazy about the idea, and some things happened and kind of went south, and I ditched the idea. I will say this, just because someone else sees your work and might be heavily inspired by it doesn't mean you should abandon your own work for fear of replication. Pursue what you want to pursue regardless. So I'll say that. I did not, and I have great regrets about it. I still have a drawer full of these keycaps that I made that I never sold. A few people actually have prototypes of these keycaps, but yeah, it was something that I ended up abandoning, but I always liked the idea of this eye on the keycap. Like, you look at your keycaps, every keycap I have, and they have, some of them have amazing eyes, like intricate eyes, but the eyes still stare dead ahead, you know? And this was the idea of something that like actively follows along with you, something that as you shift angles, it changes. Here's one that I can pull off, but like here kind of looks angry, kind of menacing. Here he kind of looks happy. Look down and kind of, it shifts. Every different way you look at the cap, it shifts how you actually view the cap. So sometimes Arthur's really just a sweet doll. Sometimes Arthur's a very vengeful mother, you know? He has this side to him, you know? So there's actually a lot. I'm in the middle. I do almost everything for my business. I say that, and there's still large sections that I don't. Shout out to both my artists, Crash and Naruval, both amazing artists. They do my stickers, they do my posters, they take my ideas and they run with them and come back with something 10 times better than what I imagined in the first place to begin with. But there is so much lore behind the Lazy universe that is right now just passed down from person to person, and there's not a central location for it. So I'm working on my website redesign, which the website's also something I coded, did all myself. I'm working on a redesign that will have the artwork there, it'll have the lore behind it, but all this to bring back that Arthur's lore is very much thinking Toy Story. It is Woody and Buzz, but they never become friends. They never get that mutual respect for each other. Arthur existed. Arthur is a very old ventriloquist doll. He existed long before Battle Bear. He was the original toy. And as Battle Bear comes out, as Buzz Lightyear is released, it's the new hotness. You know, we're in the 70s now, and there's teddy bears, fluffed teddy bears, you know, and mom, dad bring home this teddy bear for the kid, and suddenly Arthur's relegated to the shadows. You know, he's sitting on the chair. Suddenly he's in the closet. He's no longer played with, and Battle Bear is all that there is. And they end up going at each other. The toys end up fighting with each other, and that's where Arthur loses an ear and Battle Bear gets his scars. You know, all of that comes from that conflict. And we haven't gotten around to it yet, but Crash and I have a little board book we're putting together that will actually do all of will show like the little progression over 10 pages or so of Battle Bear and Arthur, where they came, how they came to be. Arthur's open mouth variant comes with a severed tongue, and part of that was as they're fighting, Arthur slashes up Battle Bear, and Battle Bear just uppercuts that jaw right through the tongue, and out comes the tongue. So Arthur no longer gets to speak, but on the open mouth variants, you'll actually find a pack of 5 to 10 removable tongues that you can stick in there just for shits and grins, for lack of better words. But yeah, it's a battle between the two. It's hatred instead of love. They never got that respect for each other. Instead, it became a no, this is my human. No, this is my human. And it blurs the lines of good and evil. Like, is Arthur really evil? Is Arthur good? Is Battle Bear good or evil? It's not so much who's good and evil as a whole. It's more the vision you have from your own perspective. Arthur doesn't think he's evil. Arthur just got robbed of his life. Someone came in and took over his entire life. He knows not why he was replaced, And to the kid's just, innocent. He's no more than Andy flying around with Buzz, This is my new toy. I'm just playing with it. And it's kind of this dichotomy of how you can react to each other. And in this case, they reacted poorly, Yeah. So yeah, that's Arthur. He was a very long process. So did that first, like I said, tree of thoughts. I did that first sculpt of him, and at the end, I couldn't get the eyes to work right. I could embed them, but they floated up in the resin all too often, and I tried silly things like sticking it onto the resin with a coat of resin, and then shoving it into the mold, letting that cure, and then casting around it, and then scraping the resin back off of the eye after it was cast. And I couldn't get the results I was after. So I ended up completely redoing him, and that's another spot to step out and say, as a maker, don't ever stop or second guess yourself if you want to try again. There's nothing wrong with it. Your first attempt's still going to be there. You can always come back to it. But if you don't like something about it, try again. Try something. Like, try to make it better. Shit, we're in the business of casting copies of things. Make a copy of it and add on to it. Start from scratch. You already have a lot of ideas from your first time sculpting it that can go into the second sculpt. Arthur is the way Arthur is because I wasn't happy, so I shoved out of frustration. I shoved clay down on a sculpting base, and I took an X-Acto knife and just started hacking away parts of it. Arthur also taught me the beauty of just fucking do it. There were so many things I was really happy with Arthur, and I've never done this before. There are so many flaws in other casts that I refuse to fix for fear of fucking up the cast as a whole. Arthur taught me the beauty of just fucking do it. I sliced parts of Arthur the fuck off with an X-Acto knife and threw them off to the side and redid them. I would have never done that. I was happy with Arthur V1. Arthur didn't come out until Arthur V21. But I was happy with Arthur V1. It was just slight things I didn't like. The jaw was slightly crooked, and it didn't line up quite the way I wanted it to. Maybe the tongue, he went through 3 iterations because the tongue didn't fit quite right on the open mouth jaw. And rather than resculpt the tongue, which is what would have made sense, I ended up just taking the jaw off and realigning it so many different times, to the point that I ended up making the jaw as its own piece that I would align with glue prior to molding, and then it would pull right off as soon as I demolded, and I'd have to fish it out of the mold. And then because it was baked, I could put it back on, try again. But yeah, don't be scared to start again. don't be scared to start over. You might find your best results. The thing that makes you most happy is nothing more than a couple of versions away in a new chunk of clay.
I love that. You mentioned several things, and you're just dropping like knowledge bombs. I can't. I'm gonna do my best to stay at the root of this tree. I mean, you talked about like, yeah, just going with your intuition, just knocking it out, just like fucking do it, and then like, don't second guess yourself, and be willing to start over and try again. And I mean, dude, it seems like you're pushing the bounds, like you're adding this whole nother layer with the story, like the whole like character development, the lore behind your sculpts, and that's just awesome to see, and something really, really incredible to look forward to.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's credit to you. I mean, you said you were putting in time in your lab. That's a year worth of experimentation, exploration, and creative juice. I mean, that's definitely credits to everything you've invested. And we mentioned there were several things mentioned that I want to riff off of, and one of them is the LazyCaps universe, and you're constantly weaving new stories, developing new ideas for this. And I was curious if you could tell me about the origin for LazyCaps and where that started.
The brand? Oh yeah, absolutely. So this goes back, I don't know if we were recording at this point or not, but it goes back to my whole idea of automation. I feel like, and not automate, let me preface this. So I've probably already said this during the recording, but I am a senior engineer for my business, not my business, but my job. Which is also part of what brought me into all of this, is I type for a living 8 hours a day. So the sound of clicky keyboard 6 years ago was just amazing to me, Of course, getting on meetings, they quickly told me to cut that shit out, and I went from clicky blues to tactiles. But it started the whole thing, and in my job, there's so much to do, and each one of us on my team does the job of a full stack developer plus some. What we would normally have other teams to do just one portion of our job, that's just one portion of all the different things we have to do. And so I am a huge proponent of automation as many places as we can. If we can push a button to make it happen, let's do it. Throughout the years, I have, I'll say affectionately, because most of the people I work with are pretty awesome people. I've affectionately been titled lazy. I'm too lazy to do something, so I find a way to make it do it itself. And it's very much an affectionate thing, but I like to make it as convenient and give us back as much time to be lazy as possible. And so that kind of came into LazyCaps. It was more almost like Tex was talking about how he's the destroyer at work. It was almost like that. It was LazyCaps, and originally, again, forgive me if this is something we talked about during the recording here, but it was originally keycaps for like a week. I was tikis. Yes. And the idea was just to make tiki themed caps, and I failed so badly at doing that. Like I could not. My first tiki became Blind Bob, so you can see the resemblance there. He shakes his head no. Yes. Not at all. Yes. It absolutely did not go anywhere where I thought it would. And so after about a week, I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm LazyCaps. I am lazy. I will do everything I can to save myself as much time as possible, because there's always something somewhere else to put the time, right? So yeah, LazyCaps, and I don't know, it worked out, and I'm very happy with the brand in the end. Like it really represents a lot of. It's almost an oxymoron I hear often, LazyCaps anything but it's not about being lazy in the sense of, okay, let me throw some shit in here, ship it off, and charge you some money. It's being lazy in the sense of, full freedom to just do, to be, and you don't have the expectations that maybe a higher end brand would come with. And furthermore, if somebody sees LazyCaps and they get that negative perception, and then they see my work and they're like, holy shit, like this is not lazy at all. Like I open this up and there's 10 different things in here plus a cap that's really well done, not to toot my own horn or anything, but the whole idea is I want you to open that cap and be like, oh my God, this is a great cap, but also look at all this other cool stuff. It's absolutely nothing against anyone who sends out their caps in a Ziploc. It's your work went into the cap. Excuse me. Your work went into the cap, and the cap is what you sent. And it's a beautiful cap, and it's worth every penny. For me, it's more about that whole experience. I want that smile on your face. I want you to, your first lazy cap, I want you to open it and be like, holy crap, this is absolutely nothing like what I expected. And I like the cap. I mean, that's my goal. Get both of those in one. Put that smile on your face. Make you feel like every penny you spent was fully worth it. Yeah.
I mean, that was my direct experience. Like when I was telling you of getting your first box, and I mean, you talk about packaging, like you translate this desire to instill joy and awe effectively. And so you have this intention. Then, where do you go from there? Actually, sorry, I don't. Again, I don't know how much time. I don't know how much time you have. It's almost been like okay. I mean,
yeah, we're all good.
Okay, dude, thank you, Johnny. So you have this intention to create and instill this joy, and you want to make packaging. So where did you go from there? Because I mean, it's one thing to get a box designed and then like get some stickers printed. Like I mean, I'll be honest, I stole the plastic sleeves from you because I thought those were legit. But I mean, it seems like you took it a step further.
I took it too far in the beginning. I seriously, it would take me a week of solid 8-hour days to pack up. My first sale took me a full week of 8-hour days to pack and get shipped out. Like it was, and not for lack of effort, not because of laziness. Back then, my idea was, okay, here I am. I'm coming in from the person who is on the secondhand market trying to pick up fugus and whatever else. And I'm getting these keycaps, and every now and then, you get a note from someone, hey, thanks for purchasing my keycap. You're awesome. Here it is. Sometimes people send like some candy with their keycap. Hey, thanks for buying this, And it was taking that experience and how can I make it as convenient for the rest of the world? And at first, I thought my website was going to be a lot more important than it ended up being. I was thinking, okay, if you've got secondhand market, right, you're always having to take keycap pictures to be like, okay, here's the proof I have this keycap, and here's like all the details of it. So when I first started, every keycap I got had 5 pictures. The internals and one from every single angle. And it was all up on my website tied to the unique ID of that keycap. So if you went there, and even today, if you have one of my early keycaps, you can go on there and see that keycap as it was created from every single angle, regardless. And down to like the blanks. I had something called a lazy blank back when I first started. SA was like the sculpt. And so I put all this work into an SA blank keycap that had like a little guy being lazy on the back of it. And then GMK came in and just steamrolled over SA like it was nothing. And so that cap quickly got retired. That's just like no one ever, I'd never see anyone using them. There's one guy, Dylan DHT, I think he goes by. But yeah, he is... yeah, Hightower, yeah. super into carbon. That's how most people know. But he was also one of my very early, like he saw Troubled Minds colors and was just like, oh my God, I gotta see these. And I was showing him prototypes and stuff over Discord, like, here's my thoughts on this. And I think my first series, everything was a Joker. Even Wicked Wanda was just Joker. Yeah. Yeah, it's... Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here.
Packaging.
Yeah,
You're good.
it's... it was... the idea was just to go super heavy, bringing it back to the root here. Super heavy on that experience. I went way overboard though, and put too many things into it that took too much time. So I started off with cardboard boxes, which were awesome. I found a place that custom print small quantities of cardboard boxes, so I was able to put like all my LazyCaps info on there and make it a fairly nice little experience. And but each box took like 30 seconds to fold, which isn't crazy, but that's 10 minutes for 20 keycaps just in folding boxes. And then I would stamp them with a foil stamp. So I'd stamp them and then sprinkle foil over it and then melt that foil into place with a heat gun and then pull that off. Then I would add a custom note. And that custom note would have melted wax on it with my symbol stamped into the melted wax. And the melted wax would match the colorway of whatever it was I was doing. So like I suddenly have this huge collection of wax pellets and 3 different stampers because I was going through them so fast that the heat of them would require dropping them in ice water in between to stamp the next one. So end up with this huge collection of stuff. I'm getting all the posters printed online and shipped to me, and then having to fold them 3 and 4. So Z fold it and then fold it in fourths from there to fit it into the package. So I'm doing this, and I'm putting the keycaps in there and putting everything together, handwriting the notes. I still do that to this day. I handwrite every single note for every single cap, every single person. I track how many wins you have. Please, for the love of God, stop changing your email, people. It's so hard to track. But I track how many wins you have. I go out and I find information about new people who who've never won anything before. I try and find out information about them and just make this as personal as possible. When you get a keycap, I want it to speak to you. And down to the note, I want the note to speak to you. I want you to remember that. And there's many different reasons for that. Part of it is, the biggest part is, I want that experience to mean something to you. I also like the fact that the more it means to you, the less likely you are to turn around and shove that keycap on Mech Market for 3 times what you paid. I'm very much not a fan of the massive secondhand market increases. Some people see it as good for the community because it brings in more people. I personally see it as bad for the community because it brings in the wrong kinds of people. It brings in the people who are just trying to make $1 off of your artwork. And I'm not saying that you can't increase the cost. I mean, we all know if you bought a Nintendo 10 years ago, it's worth more now than it was 10 years ago because of inflation, because of the rarity, because they don't make that anymore, and because, if I want a Nintendo, I'm going to buy it. And if it's going to cost me, it may have cost you $20 at a thrift shop 10 years ago, and it may cost me $100 to get it from you because I can't find it anywhere else. I get that. Inflation is a thing. It's going to happen across everything, art included. Inflation does not happen over a 2-week period. And it certainly doesn't happen at 13 times the original price. When I see people who just got my keycaps and then list them for like $250, $300, it's very frustrating because you not only did you not like the artwork enough to say, hey, I like this, I'm going to keep it, but you turned around and said, how can I benefit myself solely off of this, off someone else's work? And it doesn't make it puts you right along the same lines of people as those who are buying up 500 PS5s and then selling them on eBay for $2,000 a piece. You're not doing anything. All you did was have the money to put in originally to then rip other people off. And I think with artisans, it comes more into you had the luck of winning the raffle, and now you're using that luck and charging other people for it. And just it's definitely the dark side of this hobby, and I'm not a huge fan of that at all. I think I just went off on a tirade that totally took us away from the original question, but
still relevant. I mean, you talk about this dark side, like you have all of this intention, you put in this effort to have these individual, these like it's unique experience for someone who supports you for the cap, and then to see that translate, be it aftermarket, is disheartening. I mean, I can see how it's disheartening, and I kind of alluded to it before, was like the idea that there are these negative aspects, be it potentially aftermarket reselling and the financial burdens of keycaps on individuals who may not have the means yet still want to support, still have this desire to collect. And I was just curious how you think about that, since you mentioned it before, and if and how that affects your approach to LazyCaps.
Yeah, it definitely has had impacts. I won't say that all of them are great impacts. I think that it's been some great things. You know, I do make each experience as unique as possible for you. Down to I have some people who have won 10, 15 different times, and we're having full-on conversations between their comments section and my thank you notes, and just going back and forth. I've got one guy in particular that asks me something personal, some personal question every single raffle, and every time he wins, he gets the full-on answer of whatever it is, and sometimes that might be 3 thank you notes long of explanation. But yeah, I love those people. Make me so happy because they're invested in it for the artwork, they're invested in it for the artist, they're invested in it, you know, and it's not just a how can I turn this to make a quick buck. Shout outs to my Discord. The Lazy Fam is just fantastic. This gets to the bad side of it. I've become very, very protective of my fans, people who want my keycaps and don't want to turn around and sell them. I've got people in my Discord that have turned down $1,000+ offers for a single keycap not because they don't need the money, but because they know I wouldn't be happy with it. And at the end of the day, if you're $1,000 short on rent and you need to sell my keycap and somebody offers you $1,000, go for it. By all means, go for it. I don't want you struggling. That's part of this whole thing, right? Part of this whole conversation, part of the point of it is I don't want anyone struggling. But at the same time, if you're sitting in your house that's already paid off, or sitting in your parents' house that's already paid off, and you're just chilling doing your thing, you don't have any needs or wants in the world, and you're just winning raffles so you can turn around and flip it for 10 times the amount so that you can get more caps to flip and slowly build your $1 million empire off of the back of others, then please don't enter my raffles. I would rather have people who appreciate the artwork. And so that comes back to the Lazy Discord, Club Lazy. It started off open. Anyone could get in, but it's such a concentrated realm of wholesomeness. I've got people in there dropping keycaps that they could easily flip for 10 times as much and saying, you know what, if you're part of the Lazy Fam, fucking whatever I paid for it, that's how much you pay for it. Give me $5 on shipping, and I'll end up sending $10 worth of Kit Kats to you. Like, it's all these really sweet, wholesome people, and I ended up getting so protective of it that I locked my Discord down. I don't have the time to be as active in the overall arching community. I don't know who is who outside of like the people who enter my raffles that I get intimately familiar with. I'm not familiar with the good people, the bad people, etc. So I kind of handed that off, and there's like a group of people inside my Discord that have the ability to bring others of like-mindedness into it. But as you can imagine, it's a handful of people. People slip through the cracks, both directions, like good people getting left out and bad people sometimes maybe making it in. I can't really think of anyone bad coming in, but I mean, point is there's cracks both ways, right? And it's a little disheartening because I know that there are people. I just flat out do not invite anyone to my Discord. I don't even create invites anymore for the most part, but there's so many people that I'm sure would love a chance and would be great for the community. And it does get down to, do you know the right people to get into the community? I think this year we're starting to see, with the end of COVID, and a lot more people going back to work and a lot of people not having quite as much loose funds, we're starting to see people disappear from the hobby. And some of those people are the people who were pushing their big wallets around to make them bigger. And so I think there's a strong possibility that I open that Discord back up in the near future. But it's, regardless of the state of the Discord, where it ends up going, it's something that's negative. The fact that I had to lock it down is something that is negative. That shouldn't have had to have been a requirement.
You mentioned there's this negative aspect of having a closed Discord, and I hear you in that it's limiting the potential for people who may want to support or experience your craft, being a potential downside. And at the same time, I imagine by separating yourself from thinking about filtering, thinking about managing your Discord, you allow yourself more creativity, more space to think about your designing and your process with like Arthur Wisbing. I mean, you say 21 iterations, man. That's real. That's real time. That's real energy. And it's like, if I'm thinking for myself, oh, I need to manage this and this and this outside of just the energy I can put into keycaps alone, recognizing you have your full time, you're doing your software develop, like your senior software engineer position, and then I mean you have your family too, you're moving. I mean, can you do a few more things? I mean, I just am just balancing out what I heard you say. But yeah, you mentioned talking about like this idea of having this community and recognizing that they're like the different players, and yeah, it's definitely a sensitive topic, because I mean, with sharing artwork, when you're creating a business, you have market dynamics, right? And there's so many different players and so many different incentives, and there's nothing wrong, there's nothing good about choosing who you cater to. And I mean, like, that's part of your decision, and you have the ability to do that. So it's just, I just wanted to address what you said when I hear you say it's like this negative aspect, when it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It is what it is. We can only do so much, and I think that's something that's been a long road for me to realization. There is only so much we can do as makers, as individuals, as just a guy. There's only so much we can do. Do what you can to better the world, right? And whether that's just your immediate world or the world as a whole. But there is a limitation. I used to be a lot more active in trying to make sure that only the right people were there, and trying to make sure that just the best, I guess, scenario always existed. And I never succeeded in any great way or form. Yeah, it just is is what it is. I reach out again, Nightcaps, fantastic people. I reached out to some of the folks like Nightcaps and just tried to get ideas of how do others handle this scenario. And Nightcaps definitely was one of the most influential answers, without like giving away their exact answer. It was very much control what you can, but also don't focus on trying to control what you can't, and you can't really control other people, how they act, whether or not they're going to uh, try and profit off you, or not. Just love your work, or try and make a buck. I do face the issue of just having not nearly enough hours in the day for everything I do. Most of my since having our child, most of my keycap time comes late at night. I get up, especially with this new property we've got the property walks and everything. I get up, I do my morning routine, start work, and once I get off work, it's time with the kiddo and family. And once kiddo and family are in bed, then it's try and get some LazyCaps stuff done. And even with LazyCaps, it becomes like a competition of what wins my priority for the day. Is it sculpting? Is it casting? Is it trying to further the website so that I can get that lore out there? And it's definitely a trying thing to try and get all the things done with the time allotted in a day.
This makes me think of several things. One thing you mentioned was kind of like recognizing that you can only control so much. Like there's this kind of sense of just having to accept that, okay, I can focus on my craft. I can also spend time, energy filtering. What do I really like? What do I really find brings me satisfaction, fulfillment, joy, and focusing on that. And I was curious to hear. I mean, we might dive into something pretty deep here. I was curious to hear how you think about accepting when designs are finished. One thing for me is that I'm struggling. Well, no, I'm struggling with that. I'm fortunate to experiment with is like when I'm sculpting a new design, you have these constant iterations, and looking back, there's always something that I see I would want to do differently. And I'm just curious, like how you think as you have clearly explored so many different aesthetics with your sculpts. Kind of you alluded to, we haven't even touched on many of them, but it's like this idea of continuing to grow, and then at the same time being able to accept what you've made and be like, okay, this is good, or this is great, or whatever that means to you, and then being able to consider that complete.
A really good question. So I guess there's a lot of different aspects there. There is, when do I feel happy with what I've created? And that can come at multiple iterations. So with Arthur, as an example, I was happy with what I created probably 6 versions before it was complete. And the issues came in casting. And I'd cast something and I noticed, oh, this wall is too thin for my comfort level. I think everyone notices that your molds have just half a millimeter of give one way or the other. Your cap might sit just half a millimeter one way on one mold and then half a millimeter the other way on another. And the original iterations of Arthur that I was happy with, when the wrong set of top and bottom molds lined up, it would create a super thin spot that I could push to break. And I never want to, right, everyone knows their dollar value of when it comes to what you're buying, right? Like, sorry, that's a really poor way of phrasing that. But basically, everyone can appreciate how much money is going into what you purchase. And when we talk artisans $70, which is what I currently charge, but $70 isn't nothing. It's a large amount of money. I mean, it's a video game, right? It's a large chunk of money, and if you got your video game and like a corner of it was broken off, and it still functioned, you could plug it in, it would work, but like there's a whole corner of it that's just cracked or something, you don't feel like you got your money's worth. Hell, if Nintendo started making cartridges that were made out of super cheap plastic and you drop it and it cracks, like you're suddenly gonna be very upset that was the quality that you paid for. And what I never want is for someone to pay for my art and then be like, I regret my purchase. I wish I had not done this. That is heartbreaking to me. Just the idea that somebody would spend that much money and then be like, you know what? I wish I could take it back. Because I'm the kind of person who wishes they could give you your money back in that kind of scenario. I don't want you to be unhappy with it. So I guess that harkens back to the entire packaging and everything, is that I want you to be ecstatic about your experience. I want everything to be amazing. I want you to be thankful that not only did you win the raffle, but that you were able to spend that money to get what you got. And like at the end of the day, if you're still smiling after all of that, then like that's a complete and total win in my book.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess a few questions to start wrapping up. I guess just in reflection, I mean, you've come a long ways. I mean, it's been like, what, about 3 years since you've kind of started, and I mean, not counting like the time that you like labbing before you even shared. And looking back, is there anything you would have done differently than you did?
I have made a lot of changes based on things that I started off with maybe a different perception of. For instance, taking 5 pictures of every keycap really slowed me down in the beginning. I mean, the time it would take to photograph the keycaps was enough to have made a whole nother set of keycaps. So before our son was born, I had a lot more time to devote to LazyCaps, as you might imagine. So a lot of my efforts went into, I guess, not scalable things. And it resulted in a whole lot of keycaps that were very limited in number. And in retrospect, that created I don't know if cost vacuum is the right way to put this, but it created a limited quantity of keycaps that a lot of people now try to get for larger amounts of money than I think one person should be spending on a keycap. Not to be keycap price police or anything like that, but just I feel bad knowing that I put energy into things when I could have put energy into just providing a better supply of keycaps to these people who are now dropping, I won't say stupid amounts of money, but a lot of money on something that they like because, there was only 7 of them made or 5 of them made. I actually, Little Oso is one of my sculpts. That fun fact about that.
About him, yeah.
I am Little Oso. Little Oso is me. Little Oso comes with a poster, and he is the maker of everything. He is the equivalent of God in the LazyCaps universe. He is.
Oh.
If you look at his poster, which shows basically him passed out on the ground sculpting Battle Bear is what he's working on in that imagery, and it's a silly thing, but yeah. When I first released Lil Oso, I just I don't know. It's part of that mental complex thing, but I released him as a one of one with every sale, and he was meant to be something special, but it was one of one because I didn't really think that there would be this crazy following for him or anything like that. He was just this little cute character I made, that represented me, and I think part of my own self doubt that we all have, right? But part of my own self doubt is what led to this one of one mentality with him of, okay, I'm only gonna make one because he's just me. He's not that great. He's Nobody's gonna be that interested. There's not gonna be two people who want him, and it ended up snowballing the other direction to where like he became he's getting $600, $700, $800 offers on each one just because he's a one of one, and I realized that was around the time that I was realizing, ooh, I'm feeding the wrong side of this hobby. I'm allowing myself to feed the bad side of the hobby. And a lot of decisions I've made over the last year have gone into the exact opposite of feeding the bad side of the mentality. I think Mech from Archetype said it not too long ago. I forget where, and it was the exact mentality I stumbled upon myself over this last year. But he doesn't, or they don't, do numbers on their cards. You don't know how many of each cap they made. And the purpose of that is so that you don't look at it and say, okay, this is a one of one. I am going to sell this because it's worth more, or I am going to pursue this because it's so rare. And you see that a lot where people are pursuing caps that they don't even really care about. It's just there's only one of them, and if they can have it, they're the one who gets to say, I'm the only one who has this. And that's not necessarily a horrible thing, but it does get to the range of horrible things when you're talking about, I don't really like this cap, but the one of one. So I mean, I'm not getting rid of it. It's mine because it's one of one. And so I stopped doing numbers on my caps. Doesn't necessarily mean that I increase the numbers where I can, but I also still have sales where there might be 6 caps available. And it's not because I want to create that rarity. And that's why I no longer list the numbers or do individual pictures on my website. It's just a simple fact of when you get that cap, I want you to look at the cap. And if you don't like that cap, sell it, trade it by all means. I am fully in support of trade ups. If you can get your $4,000 keycap with one of mine, by all means, go for it. If you don't like my keycap and you like their keycap more, do it. I'm far less about sell ups. Don't sell my cap for 4,000, please. I don't like that. But yeah, I don't know. I did a lot of things that I would do differently now, and that I am doing differently now. I love the idea of my packaging, but in the beginning, it was an entire process. Like I could not produce caps fast enough because the packaging alone would take me forever. I still have very robust packaging, but now it's focused more heavily on things that are automated. My cardboard boxes got upgraded to a zip pouch. So now I can unzip and rezip. And that's so much fast, like 2 seconds versus the 30 seconds. It's small things, but it adds up. I went from getting my posters printed online to having my posters printed locally and folded to where all I have to do is fold it twice and shove it in. I put together a video of my unboxing, both as like a reminder for myself of like the process everything goes into, and like a spoiler for anyone who wants to be spoiled. But that whole process has now been automated's not the right word, but I've brought my wife into it, and she now packages all keycaps, so I can focus mostly on creating keycaps and then writing thank you notes. I am working on more automation for my raffles. That will it's goes back to like my website and everything. I end up doing a lot of this on my own, so it goes slow. But something that will allow me to do all of the raffling and RNG kind of automagically. I think listening to your interview with AutoWorks, it sounds like there's a hippo I might need to reach out to and find. But yeah, it sounds like there's some like-mindedness there in that automation, allowing you to be lazy, allowing you to have that extra time and just offload the things that can be offloaded easily.
Yes.
I always at the forefront, I always want to keep the customer, the purchaser, the artwork enthusiast, whatever you call yourself. I want to keep you first and foremost in mind. I want that package to be amazing. I want that experience to be amazing. I just want you to be able to enjoy what you get from me while doing everything I can to limit the bad aspects of the hobby, the overselling, the etc., the rarity. Even I try to produce my caps are only as rare as the time I have allotted for that particular colorway. I try to make enough where I think everyone who wants one can get one, and there will still be those who get them and say, you know what, this isn't for me, and put it on the aftermarket and do so at a reasonable price. Part of that Discord, part of Club Lazy is building a lot of that. Those who are interested in my caps are willing to let go of what they don't want for a reasonable price. Oftentimes the exact same price they paid plus shipping. I think that makes me so happy. And it's also part of why I'm so protective over this Discord and this group of wonderful people, is that I just see some amazing things in there. I've seen caps that easily go for thousands of dollars be sold at retail just because, you know what, I know you, and therefore I will give you a good hookup. I know you're good peeps. I know you're not looking to screw over someone else any more than I am, so let's work something out. And it's fantastic. It's a wonderful side of the community.
Yeah, I hear that. You're like taking the best aspects of already this amazing space and putting the time and intention to cultivate that, like doing what you can, recognizing you can't control everything, but even with like not showing the full amount, the number of caps that are sold, or just choosing who you want to share with, who these people you want to your love of this craft, your intention, like all this energy with, it makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like you're definitely doing that, and you're successfully doing that. So yeah, like looking back, you, yes, you can only hope. Yeah. So like looking back, you have definitely come a long ways, and I hear you say that you have many things you're looking forward to. What are some things you have in mind for the future?
So at this point, my two newest sculpts are Arthur Wisbang, and the newest one is Lazy Days, which Lazy Days came about in the exact opposite way of Battle Bear. Lazy Days was more about what is the minimum amount of details I can put into this to give me the biggest canvas as possible. So I'm going to sneak peek you something here, but no one really knows too much about what's going on here. But these are all the different characters I've done so far, and this is stuff that's almost impossible for me to accomplish on like a Battle Bear. This guy in particular, right? Me
see the stomach separation.
So this guy right here is a well-known character. That I haven't been able to accomplish on any other of my sculpts, because like Battle Bear, there's nowhere to put the details without running into another detail that would match up with this character, right? And this is a open canvas, so like on here, some things I can mention. This one right here is called what is this? Oh my goodness, I forgot the name. It was for the Australian keycap meetup, and it is it features Australian daisies. It's kangaroo. It's the rooted roo. That's what it is. I was looking into slang, and for Australian, I guess rooted kind of means like lazy. So relaxing roo, but not rooted roo. So put that one together for that meetup.
That's clean.
And then thanks. I've always, this will be one of my, actually it's this version right here. That's my original version. This guy right here will be my next sale. Was actually planned for this Thursday, but I ran out of time. But so probably next Thursday. But yeah, he's had a huge impact, and actually even a huge impact on my
I see you hair. Yes,
there we go. So I have a massive fascination for at a very young age. I was introduced to 1989 Batman, and Jack Nicholson's Joker made a huge impact on my life. So my entire board is very much Joker themed.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it's something I'm still regularly working on. I do a lot of, well, I won't say a lot because I don't have nearly as much time as I would like, but I try to do trades with other artists. Raph sent me just a ridiculous amount, but here is Raph.
Oh, that's insane.
And yeah, Vincent's really talented guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've got right here, if I can pull it off, I've got one of Texas Rars.
Tex, let's go.
Fantastic guy here. And then I have a silly amount of these guys. It's Senpra Caps.
Senpra. Yeah. The Goblin. The Tengu, yeah.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I did trades with Brew Caps. So here's Brew's regular hands.
Regular hands, yes.
Yes. I saw him and I was like, man, this is like the perfect sculpt for like a Joker colorway, and he was so eager to do a trade. It was so nice. But yeah, I do a lot of trades with individual artists on a 1-to-1 scale when I can actually manage to take their ideas and accomplish something with them. But yeah, it's my entire board is just decked out in Jokers.
That's so sick. And it's like an ode to your origins, and then also respect for like other people in the game, in the craft.
Absolutely. There's so much talent, and it just keeps growing. Like the newer makers come in with just these off the wall ideas that blow me away. And you've got people who are in the clay side of things, people in the digital side of things, and like it's both sides just come up with the craziest stuff. And I remember at one point thinking like, wow, I've got some very good sculpts that match up in terms of like level of detail and everything, match up with a lot of the people out there. And sometimes I look at the stuff coming out these days and I'm just like, man, my stuff is garbage. Absolute garbage. These people are coming out with like just the craziest setups and inventing in ways that just haven't been seen before.
I can say the same for sure. It's like seeing the new makers, the new skill. It's like back to the craft, start practicing some more. And at the same time, I could say the same thing for your resin casting combined with your sculpts. I mean, I could go on. I mean, you've done like the color changing, you've done the UV, you've done like the encapsulate like glitter, like you you've been crushing it, man. But I hear you. It's exciting to see the growth and the development of the community, and is really inspiring for me to continue and practice my sculpting, my casting too.
Yeah, definitely. Text actually, going back to text, is a good reason or a good part of why some of my more off the wall colorways have happened. For the longest time, I was very, very strict in there's a stitch here, that stitch needs to be colored, and it needs to be a clean color right here in this stitch that highlights the stitch. Some of my most popular colorways would have never happened without text being like, nah, dude, go crazy. Like, just go crazy, go ham, just throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And um, you said, as you mentioned, glitter. I have a couple of different ones. I have Verwork, which was my very first one, which is firework, and it was like an explosion of glitter colors. And I never would have even gone down that path had it not been for Tex pushing me down that path. It's Tex for me, but I mean it's any number of people for so many other makers. It's you discover, hey, I can melt these two colors together and create a nice fade, and now you've inspired that many more people to, hey, let me try this out. Let me see if I can take it one step further. And it's that across the board for everyone in all sorts of ways. There's so much inspiration and so many people to inspire you with their own artwork that it's a beautiful hobby we have.
100%. It's very beautiful. One question I like to ask to close is, recognizing you've shared a lot of your insight, you've dropped some really good advice too for people generally follow or notice. And something I like to ask is, do you have any parting thoughts, advice, or even asks or requests of the audience and anyone who's listening?
Spread kindness every chance you get, every single chance. It typically costs you nothing. More often than not, if there is a cost, it's nothing more than time. And it's the one most powerful thing you can do. When you die, people aren't going to remember that you created a keycap that was purple, pink, and green, and that just happened to be their favorite color set. People are going to remember the feelings you gave them. They're going to remember that interaction with you, whether good or bad. We've all lost people in our lives, and some of those people were just absolutely amazing and stick with us forever. And then, there's, for lack of better words, there's dirtbags who have died that no one gives a shit about. Like, you're gone, and I haven't thought of you since. And at the end of the day, the end of the life, if you will, the only thing that matters is how much love you brought to the world. And we all have the power to do it. There's nothing special about it. Kindness requires nothing from anyone other than to try. The smallest thing can spread so much hope in the world. And I mean, times can very much seem like they are very dark these days. There's always negative news. There's always negative things happening in the world. We can help each other just by being there for each other, just by being kind to each other. You don't have to say, do, or think. I mean, you can think whatever you want, but you don't have to say or do negative things. The person who, there were many people, but the people who talked about my prices when I first started, right? It was just an opinion. Some of them were very heated, negatively made opinions. That shit stuck with me. Still sticks with me. I still think about it regularly. And at the same time, Liam sent me, a couple paragraphs of text 2.5 years ago, and it still sticks with me. It's still something in my times of doubt that come back to it. I have a wonderful group of friends. I have a lot of great friends, not to disclude anyone, but Tex the Destroyer, Jenna makes keycaps, and RTG Caps are some of the closest friends I've got in this. And when days are bad, when you start to doubt yourself, we're there for each other, and we're there to lift each other up. The more you can do that, and the further you can do that, the further you can reach, the better. As a maker, you have an audience. You have a huge audience, and it takes so little to spread that love. I don't do the Reddit posts as much as I should anymore. It feels like it's too easy to break rules these days. I broke rules on like my last 4 posts, and so it kind of turned me off from doing Reddit posts, and I really need to get over that mentality and get back to it, because it's a great place to get those wholesome comments and wholesome interactivity. But it cost me a keycap each time I did one of those giveaways, and most of them had over 100 comments. And even if only 20% of the people were actually doing what was requested, that's 20 people who called their parents, who called their friend, who gave someone a hug or a good compliment. I think one of the last ones I had people do was just go look in the mirror and tell yourself something you love about yourself. Give yourself some self-love. Tell yourself what's good about you, because you need to hear it. You need to hear it from other people. You need to hear it from yourself. And all that was at the cost of a single keycap. I will pull a keycap from every single one of my raffles if I can keep getting that kind of reaction. I want people to make the world a better place. And as a maker, we have a platform where we can do that. We can do it easily. But even without being a maker, you have friends, you have family, you have neighbors, you have the guy at the store that you walked past that happens to have a cool hat or something. You can make these comments, you can say something, you can get out of your own comfort zone if that's the problem, and just say, hey, cool hat. Hey, thanks for making my day. Hey, thank you for being my friend. Hey, Mom, I love you. Hey, Dad, it was great talking to you. It's the ability to make each other feel better. And with all the negativity in the world, we should all focus heavily on making each other happy. And we only get our one, depending on your views, of course, in religion, etc. But we only really get our one trip around the sun, right? You get your one go at it, and why not make it the best? Why not help other people make their own lives the best that they can be? Why not lift each other up rather than tear each other down?
Beautiful, man. Like, choose kindness, choose love, and choose compassion. Just do what we can to bring each other up. Love that. Another thing to close is, where's the best place for people to follow your craft, or the best place for people to get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm a broken record with everyone else, but Instagram seems to be the go-to these days. It's definitely, I feel like it's probably one of the more positive social media aspects these days. You don't see a lot of negative comments. You may see that, I will say, avoid the influencer lifestyle, right? People like to highlight only their good and not their bad, but in terms of like just interacting with each other, it definitely seems Instagram's a much less hostile place than some of the other places. So Instagram /LazyCaps. That's me. I don't really have contact information, but you can hop on LazyCaps.club, and that's my website. From there, you can see most of my work until I get a redesign going on. Some of the newer work is not quite up there yet. I think the last thing I did was a Discord event called the Adopt-a-thon. But yeah, it's one of those two places is typically where to get in touch or see my work.
Awesome. Johnny, man, I just really want to thank you for carving out the time to share your heart, to just share who you are with me and everyone who's listening. I mean, and you got to be the hardest working lazy man I now know. I mean, you're crushing it on all fronts, it seems. And again, I just appreciate you and sharing your story and just sharing your time.
Well, thank you. This has been an absolute blast. And I said this before, but thank you for doing this. It's like, I wish something like this existed when I started. I really do. There's so much good coming from this little podcast that it's not little to deneg or anything, but like, this podcast is fantastic. I listen to it constantly. It makes me so happy hearing other artisans, hearing their journey, hearing a lot. I mean, so much love comes from so many people, and I feel like this highlights a lot of that. It highlights a lot of our struggles, a lot of our journeys. Everyone's journey is different, and it's great hearing everybody's journey. I think this is fantastic. It is. Right back at you. Everything you've done has been absolutely amazing. I said it. I'll probably say it third, fourth, fifth time during this recording. Who knows? But when I first started, I was Tiki's, and I gave that up after a week. And when I saw your first Tiki, it was, holy crap! This is it. Like, this is exactly what I was thinking. Like, this is beautiful work. This is 10 times better than anything I could have come up with when I was looking to do this. So fantastic. And your whole journey has been just really great to watch. Adding this on top of it is, I mean, you've got your own multifaceted diamond going on here, and it all sparkles and shines, my friend. All of it.
Man, thank you so much for that, Johnny. That really hits me. I think thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And need to gather myself. I just want to say again, like, thanks for making the time, and to everyone listening, as always, I'll include the show notes. They'll have links to everything we talked about, and you can find them at onceitclicked.com. And until next time, thank you for tuning in.